Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Keys to AWS Optimization. We have an exciting episode for you today. As always, we are diving into a new announcement fresh off the deployment blade. So we're excited to dive into that. And I've got two lovely guests with me today, Rick and Logan. Rick, you've probably seen her a few times. Logan is new to the show, so give him a lovely warm welcome. As always, any questions, comments, drop them in the chat. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to drop in any questions or comments in the thing below. We are tracking all of it and we'll make sure we reply. But before we get into it, Rick, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week?
I've got to say it's been a frugal week because I'm recovering from a flu last week, and it's really poor timing because we've got FinOps X next week, and I'm just trying to get my recovery done, get all my fluids taken in. So I've just been kind of laying low. So no spending or excess at all in my household this week.
Just keeping it in. That's the same. I feel like everyone has had me over the last two episodes just coughing a lot. I had a chest infection when I was competing a few weeks ago, and luckily I'm over it, so that's great. Hopefully no more. I'm gonna say that I'm better, start coughing. But I know what you mean. I just didn't do anything. I think I binge watched Gilmore Girls for a day because I just couldn't. I just couldn't do anything else. But Logan, have you had a splurgy week or a frugal week?
It's definitely been a frugal week after some really splurgy tickets to Kendrick Lamar, which was an amazing show. Yeah, really amazing. But, he's probably the most popular artist in the U.S. right now, maybe even the world. So, yeah, after that, it's tightening it up financially.
As Rick and I are wearing our lovely swag, we are off to San Diego next week for FinOps X. Let us know in the comments if you are coming along. But I'm doing a cheeky trip. It only took me 3 years to realize that San Diego is right next to Disneyland, or near enough to Disneyland that I could fly in there. So I'm going to be doing a little stopover with Savannah to do a Disney trip. So turns out LA, expensive. Didn't realize that before. And so I'm spending a nice little bit, but just me to just go to the Marvel campus is all I really care about. But let's get into the show. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we show stories. What did I even say? The show where we share. God, I've been doing this for how many years and I mucked it up. I feel like I should cut it. Welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior SA advocate here to help you on your FinOps journey. Rick, do you want to give just a quick hello, and then we'll give Logan his 1-minute origin story?
Awesome. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Oakes. I lead product management for all of the optimization tools at AWS and also sit on the Technical Advisory Council of the FinOps Foundation representing AWS.
Which means he gets a cool hoodie, which I don't have, and I'm always jealous that he has.
I actually have the hoodie right here, Steph, just to make you feel bad. I just have it. It's just such a nice, cool hoodie.
Can I take him off the stream? All right, Logan, do you want to give everyone your 1-minute origin story?
Sure. So I'm Logan Klyer. I work as a product manager in AWS Trusted Advisor, and also, just in the next couple of weeks to be transitioning over to work and focus on AWS startups, which is both have been exciting. So that's my brief origin.
Oh, I love it. Exciting for you.
Yeah.
People in the chat saying very pricey.
Yeah.
Someone's from LA, so this person knows it, which is great. So we are diving into a new announcement for today. But before we get into the specifics of the announcement, let's set the scene with two tools that you guys are probably familiar with. Why don't I kick off with Logan? Why don't you just explain Trusted Advisor in a brief summary? What is this tool service that AWS provides?
Sure. So AWS Trusted Advisor is a service that provides you with checks, recommendations, in other words, a form of data to help you understand how to optimize your AWS environment. And it does it in several specific areas. Cost optimization is one, but it also does it for security, performance, reliability, and fault tolerance.
A nice broad, all the pillars, and been a tool that I've been aware of for so long and utilized for years before any other ones existed, before Rick came in and started making some of the new tools. It's like an OG one. And I love that it does what it says on the tin. It's just there to advise and support you. Rick, why don't you go into Cost Optimization Hub?
Yeah, so Cost Optimization Hub is definitely a newer product. It's been around for about a year and a half now. We launched it at reInvent a year and a half ago, and the whole problem we were trying to solve by launching Cost Optimization Hub is we heard from customers that wow, there's a lot of different tools that provide recommendations. They might have different amounts of savings, or come from different sources, or have different total end recommendations, and it's confusing for customers to have to go to all those different products and pull all the recommendations together and rationalize them. And so we wanted to do that aggregation on behalf of customers and just deliver the end result, the end deduplicated sort of recommendation results and savings amount. So we launched Cost Optimization Hub. It takes recommendations from a lot of places, like Compute Optimizer, for example, for right sizing and idle recommendations, Cost Explorer for savings plans and reservation recommendations. And it takes all of those into kind of a single pane of glass experience that deduplicates the savings. And we'll talk a little bit more about deduplication in a few minutes, but the whole idea is to just give you one set of recommendations that is consistent and easy to use, and incorporates, your discounts and RIs and SPs and all of the terms you have.
Yeah, the customization hub, I feel like there's some content coming out soon on the developer channel, and we've done a bunch on these about this awesome tool. And I feel like it's that single pane of glass is really helpful, and that deduplication, because numbers can be inflated when we think of all the savings, but you can't actually do them. We'll touch on that a bit. But the announcement, Logan, I'll give it to you to do the announcement that is the announcement.
Yeah, so as of yesterday, we added 15 cost optimization checks to Trusted Advisor, and those cost optimization checks are sourced from Cost Optimization Hub, which is the origin of Rick and I's partnership, really to deal with some of those customer issues that I started hearing when I started with Trusted Advisor to get some better recommendations.
Amazing. So these are coming, like you said, from Cost Optimization
Cost Optimization Hub, yes.
And so what was the decision to kind of merge these from you guys' point of view?
Well, so I started working on Trusted Advisor in October last year, and immediately started talking to a number of customers, just reaching out to them directly to better understand, what do you use Trusted Advisor for? Do you use it for cost optimization, security? And a lot of the conversations focused around cost optimization. One of the things that was a really consistent theme that they were asking for my help is to say, can you get some better contextual recommendations for how we can save money? For example, in Trusted Advisor, as you were talking about, it's an OG product, and the when you have an OG product, our OG recommendation was just to stop or terminate, for example, instances. But since that time, there's other ways to achieve cost savings, right sizing instances. And so, at that point, it was like I had a clear set of problems, and then was looking for a solution for that. And then, certainly talk a little bit about how Rick and I came together after that.
Yeah, that's a good segue. So, Rick, from your point of view, I think we talked before about customers having these both sets of not conflicting, because there's slightly different angles of the data, and you wanting to pull them together. What was the process like for you?
Yeah, at reInvent last year, we launched a bunch of new idle recommendations in Compute Optimizer. And that was done with a lot of research and discussion with customers on how can we make an idle recommendation that's really bulletproof and safe and trustworthy. And that meant we spent a lot more time kind of figuring out, okay, what can we do beyond just, CPU measurement of an idle resource? So, historically, idle has been something like, hey, is CPU low? Like below 5%, yes or no? And if yes, it's idle. And we wanted to really define and set up what is the future, what does a modern idle recommendation look like? So using things like network throughput, using things like connection counts, CPU, memory, disk, right? We can use a lot more measurements and counters to look at if a resource is idle from many dimensions. And that gets rid of a lot of false positives. It lowers the number of idle recommendations you get, but it helps build trust with your engineering teams when you do show them a list of idle resources that these things really are unused, and you're spending money on them, and there's They're non-functional. They're not accomplishing any tasks or work. So when we did that launch in Compute Optimizer for 6 new idle recommendations at reInvent, we're like, all right, we've set a new standard, we've set a new definition for what is idle, and we wanted to work with Trusted Advisor to make sure that those results match across the products, right? So this is an important step for us, that no matter what front door tool you use, you get the same answer. You get the same amount of savings, the same quality in the idle definition and check. And even further, in Compute Optimizer, you can adjust some of the definition of some of the different recommendation types, like right sizing. You can change the lookback period. You can change the sensitivity and percentile values and things like that. And the more customization we offer customers, the more bespoke and specific recommendations you can get that align to your approach. So if you have non-production environments that you are a little less performance sensitive and you want more savings, you can tune that into the recommendations, versus something like production with really sensitive high percentile values, very conservative, right? So offering these sorts of adjustments and customizability has been a big part of our roadmap for the last several years. And we wanted everybody using the Trusted Advisor workflow and experience to get the benefit of all of this new definition work, customization work, pricing support for your discounts and RIs and SPs. We just wanted to share the love, make sure that there's a consistent experience across whatever product you're using. So there's like less of an emphasis on, okay, where did you click? Where did you go? And there's more like, hey, these are the same source, same data set, same definition, no matter where you go.
Yeah, I want to add that, from my side, there was a question of, should we build all of this? Everything that Rick talked about, it was, once I heard customers talking about the issues they had and how we could solve them, we thought about, can we build this inside of Trusted Advisor? But really, once Rick, and I don't know, how the problems came together, and Rick, almost, came into my life, to say, I think we can solve this without you having to build all of this. I said, well, let's do that. This seems like a lot of work. Rick's team and the cost optimization team, cost optimization hub team, have a lot of expertise, as he said, doing it. And so that just made it a really seamless solution to say, how can we pull you in so that we give Trusted Advisor customers the benefit of everything that you're doing? And that gets us to the customers faster than us doing all of that hard work to build it ourselves.
Yeah. And to touch on a couple of things, agree, Rick, going back to what you said about working with developers, a challenge that I feel like FinOps people always have, that I used to do the same thing back in the day. The early recommendations from TA would often, I think, people would be like, this is idle, and they're like, well, is it? Or like, do we do this? And so the good thing is that we now have a lot more data, and like you said, more configurable, so that when they get a recommendation, it's right the first time. And I found it that when you provide recommendations and they're wrong, it's kind of like that like you said, losing trust. And as soon as that trust is gone, especially if it's the first time, people are like that, every time Steph gives me a recommendation, I have to go do more work, rather than it be like, oh, we found something, we'll fix it now. And so making sure, and that's consistent across the board for everything, make sure the recommendations you give to other teams, you're 100% certain of, because otherwise they just won't listen to what they're thinking. And the other thing I was going to say is great. I love that look. You're like, Rick said he's going to do the work for me. Perfect.
Yeah, right.
That's what we love. And just like reusing that. Look, we're going to touch on later about who should use what tools and things like that, but the consistency. So if a technical person goes in and sees it versus maybe a FinOps person, they know it's the same thing and they can have that conversation, is amazing. Moving on, the thing I want to dive into next is the recommendations themselves. So we mentioned there was a bunch of new ones. Are any of them net new in Cost Optimization Hub, or are they all ones that are migrated from Cost Optimization to Advisor?
Yeah, good question. So they are all currently existing in Cost Optimization Hub. That being said, I hope you're all paying close attention to FinOps X next week.
Yes. Some things to look out for. We also got a question of if we're going to FinOps X. We're going to talk a little bit about FinOps X at the end of this episode, so stick around. And we're also going to be doing a demo of where to find these checks and what they look for. But do you want to touch on, Logan, what some of the checks are that we have?
Sure. So some of them are related to DynamoDB. There's one related to EBS, an EBS utilization, and it goes across a variety of services. But one of the things I want to back up on is to say also that we do have similar checks available, that those native Trust Advisor checks for things like EBS. And one of the things I'd say here is, as of today, we consider those to be more, our native THX to be more legacy, where we're getting this new data, these new recommendations. And so by legacy, I mean at this point that we would encourage any users where they see that same EBS check that is sourced from Cost Optimization Hub inside of Trusted Advisor and our native one, that they start using and trusting that new Cost Optimization Hub one more.
Right. So they're kind of overlapping. I see.
Or there's overlapping. And so right now for these overlapping checks, what we would say is the older ones are legacy because, they don't have that same contextual recommendation, and the higher fidelity ones would be the new ones that we're talking about today from Cost Optimization Hub.
Perfect. Yeah. What was I going to say? My mind just went blank. Well, I'll come back to whatever my brain was going to do. What I was going to ask is, do we need to do anything to get these checks? So we need to enable anything, activate anything, subscribe to anything, or obviously subscribe to the channel, guys. And but do we need to do anything, Logan?
Yes. So there's essentially three things. If you are using Trusted Advisor and you want these Cost Optimization Hub checks, you would need to be at least a business support customer. But let's assume you're already a AWS Business Support customer. You would need to opt in to Cost Optimization Hub. It's fairly straightforward. I did it in my account in like 3 clicks. It might be 2, but I'll just be liberal and say it was 3. And then to get some of the maximal benefit, I think Rick would agree to also ensure that you're opted into Compute Optimizer, because that helps you get some of the idle and right sizing recommendations. So both of those, and opting into Compute Optimizer, I did that a couple of weeks ago in one of my AWS accounts. I think that was 2 to 3 clicks in the console, really straightforward.
Yeah, there is at some point a video coming out where I even do it in a timer and enable Customization Hub and Compute Optimizer in less than 30 seconds of a little countdown. I think it took 20 seconds, but we gave ourselves a buffer in case the page took too long to load. But yeah, it's so fast to do. Everyone on this who's watching this, I'm hoping already has these things enabled, but we always want to encourage more people to do it because it is so simple. On that, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. The first is, are there any additional costs for opting into both of these things? So if you already have, like you said, Logan, business, which is a paid level, right?
Yes, business is paid. AWS Support business plan is paid. But in terms of Cost Optimization Hub, no. In terms of Compute Optimizer, no.
Great. Love it. That's what we want to hear.
Right.
The other question we had is, can this be used in an organizational context with 70 plus accounts composed of different environments? So Trusted Advisor works at scale, I believe?
It does. We do have an organization's API, but that, I think, Rick, this might be a good question of consuming data via, or, for organizations, if you're using AWS organizations, if that's really the question, whether you have an opinion on, that data is better consumed directly from Cost Optimization Hub.
It's a good question. If you're just looking for cost optimization answers at an organizational level, Cost Optimization Hub is designed for that, for sure. It's a great use case. It will look at all of your optimization recommendations across accounts. So if you have an AWS org with hundreds or even thousands of accounts, you'll see all of those recommendations and amount of savings aggregated up into a single savings number. You can opt in for Cost Optimization Hub at the AWS orgs level. So you don't have to enable it on every single account. You can just enable it on your org and it'll turn on for everything. And then we also have a cool feature called exports. Exports allows you to take all of the Cost Optimization Hub recommendations and their details and export them into a single file that goes into an S3 bucket. And you can get like a daily refresh of all your recommendations and use those and track them over time and so on and so forth. So Cost Optimization Hub is designed to work with the AWS orgs sort of configuration, and also has a delegated admin feature in case you wanted to delegate optimization to a specific account or user that is going to manage the optimization program or project ongoing.
Yeah. I told you I'd cough. There's a blog I started a while ago, and I'd love to know in the chat or in the comments on demand, which was grabbing the recommendations from both Trusted Advisor and Cost Optimization Hub and turning them into Jira tickets, because I feel like sometimes people don't actually log into those places and not looked at it, but they do look at their sprints and they do look at their tickets. And so I made that, but then I think I got stuck on a internal process thing. So hopefully I'm gonna get that through. And then I wonder, I guess I probably could just pull Trusted Advisor now because they're all in the same place.
They're all the same. Yep.
Yeah. And also it would get, I think the other thing was that we wanted to option it for scaling. So if you have Trusted Advisor and you wanted to focus on your security checks, or you wanted to focus on your fault tolerance checks, you could change the parameters and it would also produce tickets for those. So this way it could be quite holistic, and that means less programming, which is always nice.
Yep.
We what's this one? I got a question in the chat. I'll come back to that one in a moment. The last thing I wanted to double check was when it comes to Compute Optimizer specifically, Rick, we've mentioned some configuration. Actually, let's go. I think when we do the demo, let's look at the configuration checks in there in my account. We can maybe do some changes. So if I'm a person who just come into my account, logged in on a normal Thursday, and maybe what would I be looking for that's different in this page?
So if you're looking for the new checks inside of Trusted Advisor that come from Cost Optimization Hub, what Steph has literally right at the top of her page is a check that originates from Cost Optimization Hub. So if you click that arrow, it has a description about the check, and as you can see, source. So this in the console helps tell you where it comes from. Obviously, we're clearly labeling it that's coming from Cost Optimization Hub. And then when you're scrolling further down, you can see a list of resources in Steph's account that there are recommendations, again, coming from Cost Optimization Hub on what to do. And as we talked about earlier with having contextual recommendations, this is where this really shines above and beyond the legacy checks. The recommended action, you see there's a couple of different types, upgrade and delete. And it even provides in terms of the recommended resource summary, whether it's GP3 or detach the volume, and then what you can save also. So this, I think, is a really good, just right off the top of your page, this is a really good example of moving into more contextual recommendations, getting far more specific on the monthly savings and obviously which resources impacted.
Yeah. And question on I don't think I've ever really noticed this before, that you have both estimated monthly cost and monthly saving. Are there any recommendations in TA that have different numbers?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
No, offhand, I don't believe so.
Oh, wait, there's one here.
This one is also a Cost Optimization Hub.
That'll be an example, yeah.
Yes.
So monthly cost, monthly saving, the resides. Yes.
And then
I feel like we can do that.
Yeah, and then the next one is Amazon EC2 Cost Optimization recommendations for instances. That's also new. That's from Cost Optimization Hub.
Yeah, I see it.
So you'll see a difference in estimated monthly cost versus savings whenever it's not a delete recommendation. Because a delete recommendation, you save 100% of the cost because it's going to tell you to delete the resource.
Right.
If it's something like, hey, move from an M7i to a Graviton for 30% savings, right? The savings will be 30% of the total monthly cost.
Oh, yeah. I just totally misread it. I just didn't see the 16. I'm just not good at reading. Blame my dyslexia. No. I didn't even notice that. That's when I think I scrolled down, and so these were looking at these ones that were the same.
Yeah, the legacy checks don't have this because, as Rick just pointed out, if your only recommendation is to stop or terminate, for example, an instance, you save 100%, right, of that. But when you start right sizing, you're saving, a percentage of your old costs, right? Because you're changing the size. So this is a great example of how moving into the cost optimization hub era for Trusted Advisor, recommendations start looking a little different, not just in how, but how much you save in those columns.
Yeah,
There's
like
also
example.
like,
Oh, go on.
yeah, like GP2 to GP3 is just like a flat 20% cost savings, right?
Yeah.
GP3 is 20% cheaper per gig than GP2, right? And so you're going to see just like a nice 20% haircut on all of your GP2. This will list all of your GP2, the 20% savings. And then, from there, it's pretty easy to just go in and make the drop-down selection change from GP2 to GP3.
Nice. Yeah, nice and simple ones. And yeah, you can see some of the old ones don't have that. And we have this like just monthly saving.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that
and
EBS. And for example, if you scroll back up, the EBS over provision volumes, we have taken 2 Trusted Advisor checks. One's on under provision EBS volumes, and then we have a separate over for provision volumes. Well, now with what we're taking from Cost Optimization Hub and the new check, we have just one, right? Which, there should be just one check. Are you essentially right size for EBS? And so that, just is an efficiency right there.
Oh, interesting.
Going from 2 checks in Trusted Advisor to the new one is like just one regarding EBS provisioning.
Okay, cool. That's going to change. I love it. Okay, so we got a couple of questions. In future, we'll be able to have network cost optimization like S3. Oh, I don't know what to say. Suggested like, these are different BPC, I think, options are S3. So are we going to be applying, are there plans to have networking optimization? I think is part of like the deep dive of that question for Trusted Advisor or could be Optimizer.
We're constantly evaluating and getting customer signals on what is the next thing you want help optimizing. Network costs are something we hear a lot from customers. So this is something that we highly evaluate and prioritize into our roadmaps and backlogs. So we take seriously all feedback whenever customers are like, I'm struggling with this service. This service, either the pricing is a little bit difficult to consume or the configuration impact on pricing. And so we look for those signals and we have a lot of customer conversations to validate, hey, what is the next big thing we want to optimize? And if you just like go into the what's new feed on the AWS website and look for Compute Optimizer, you'll see the very extensive list of launches we've had over the last several years, launching new recommendations. Like we launched Aurora and auto scaling groups and RDS. And so we continue to just kind of go down the list of services that have a cost optimization opportunity to go build new recommendation types. And that's one of the things that Logan and I talked about extensively is whenever we build a new recommendation in Compute Optimizer, it's our intent to make sure this always flows into Cost Optimization Hub, into Trusted Advisor. And so keep an eye out. Yeah, for sure.
And I just want to add, in terms of Trusted Advisor's future, is that I look at our strategy as being tied to Cost Optimization Hub. In other words, I see our future as being, partnering with our expert, and brother, sister team, however you want to say it, that they know, they don't have all the expertise better, and we will just continue to import that. I frankly don't see us as kind of building that, internal expertise. It's duplicative and, it would take a long time. So in the future, yes, when Rick and team start building, adding recommendations, we're going to add those in ourselves on the cost optimization side.
Brilliant. Bringing it all together. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations and you want to chat, email us at costoptimization@amazon.com, or you can speak to your product teams and ask them to raise a product feature request on your behalf. Or in the console, you could even raise a product feature request. If there's something really bugging you and you're like, I wish I did this, don't assume that we know about it. Tell us. We want to hear from everyone. We always want to, we're customer obsessed, want to hear that. I used to raise so many when I was customer. I was constantly on the support page. I want this. And I still do it now for my customers. So please feel free to let us know. Similar kind of question, which we had, which is, are there any options available to identify unused BPC oh my goodness, my reading today I'm just going to say endpoints. Oh, goodness, I can't today. Guitar needs some sleep. Rick, do we have any of those in there in Customization Hub? I don't think so, right?
Not VPC interface endpoints. No.
Okay. There is in the cost optimization, no, in the Kudos dashboard, we do have idle VPC endpoints as an option. So you can check out there. That is based on spend data. So I think it's like input and output of how you're using it. So I think it's like bytes in, is it bytes in, bytes out? It's basically looking, have you had anybody use any of that spend type against the VPC endpoint? And if they haven't, then you could do that. So if you check out the dashboard, you can do that.
There is a trusted advisor check for inactive VPC interface endpoints.
Oh,
yeah. So
I'm going off about Kudos and it's in here.
Yeah.
There's none. I have none deployed, so no. But yeah, there's a bunch in here. Well, there we go. That was a good question. I didn't even realize. I've learned something new. While we are sharing, let's go to Cost Optimization Hub, because Rick, we touched a little bit earlier about having points where you could configure your compute optimizer, to make it more specific to your users, whether it's your developers, or just to make sure when it comes to your application, you're getting recommendations that actually align to what you want. Do you want to talk me through how I could configure some of that?
Absolutely. So right sizing and idle recommendations come from Compute Optimizer. So let's head to Compute Optimizer. So this is what Compute Optimizer looks like. In the dropdown, can you click View and deselect regions for me, Steph? And what this does is this will look at all recommendations across all regions for you. So in this case, it looks like you have some right size recommendations and some idle recommendations here. Let's go ahead and scroll down, and you'll see at the bottom part of the Compute Optimizer page a table view which lists all of the recommendations by different resource types. So it looks like you have some EBS volumes that are idle. You have 5 idle EBS volumes, 1 that is not optimized, which means there's a right size recommendation or modernized recommendation. You have an RDS DB instance that is idle, and some EC2 autoscaling groups that are not optimized. Those are really fun too, because the complexity there is very high. You can have a ton of different instance types all in a single instance autoscaling group. And so when you're looking at recommendations, let's take a look at EC2.
Rick, I was just thinking, coming from some trusted advisor customers, so the concept of a look back period would be a word they don't know. I'm just curious for anyone out there who might say, is it worth 15 seconds to say, well, what does it mean to look back?
Yeah, great question. So we look at 5-minute samples. And that means like CPU, network, disk, memory, so on and so forth. We look at CloudWatch utilization samples every 5 minutes, and we take the highest utilization within that 5-minute period. So it's a 5-minute peak sample. And we take 14 days of those samples. So that's something like 3,000 or so samples by default. Now, if you're running a workload where you have a weekly pattern of usage, say your product or application gets lots of use on Fridays or on weekends or something like that, that default 14 days is a great look back period, because it's going to get all of your weekly patterns pulled into the recommendation and analysis. But if you have something more like a monthly pattern, say you're running an application that does payroll once a month or something like that, and it only runs maybe the last Sunday of the month or something like that, you're going to want to change your look back period. And Steph, if you can go to, there you go, you found it, the edit button on the right, click next here.
This is it.
There you go. And so if you scroll down to actually at the very top, look back period, you actually already have it set to 93 days, Steph. So the 3 options are 14 days, which is the default, 32 days, which will pull in 5-minute samples for 32 days of history, which is a lot of sample data. This will give you a full month of usage and utilization data in the recommendation, or you can pick 93 days. 93 days is a paid feature. We call it enhanced infrastructure metrics. It roughly works out to about 25 cents a month per instance. And it's sort of calculated on an hourly basis. So if the instances are offline, you're not charged for it. So it's not a high cost service or anything, but if you do have quarterly workload cycles, so say you have a quarterly business review product or application, or you have a quarterly cycle of usage or something like that, the 93-day option is a good option as well. And so you can come in here and pick what is your preferred look back period for all of your recommendations. I like to come in here and set it for 32 days for everything, just to kind of level set it. Everything operates based on a month of usage. And then once you set the look back period, those recommendations will regenerate and refresh the next day. That it takes about 24 hours for recommendations to regenerate. And then all of your recommendations will be using your new look back period worth of data. There's also things like percentile settings, like CPU thresholds. This is essentially how much sensitivity to peak usage you want the recommendation to have. By default, it's extremely conservative. It uses 99.5 percentile, which means it takes the 99.5 highest set of utilization data, or actually 0.5 highest. Essentially, it takes 0.5 off the top of the utilization graph. And that's for things like reboots or patches or things like that. You don't always want to upsize your instance if it has, a 5-minute peak because you rebooted it or something like that. So we take just a little bit off the top. If it's non-production, right, you can bump that down to 95th percentile or 90th percentile and get a little bit more savings out of the algorithm. And then you have headroom. Headroom, we have by default 20% headroom. And this is, again, like an extra little safety net on top of the recommendation. So by default, that's 20%. You can add another 10% and go to 30% headroom, or you can go down to 0%. And 0% is a good option if you know that you're not going to have future spikes that are unplanned. Like if your usage is really constant and stable, 0% headroom will save you extra money because it's not looking to go add in an extra 20, 30%. CPU, memory, disk, network, so on and so forth. So these sorts of adjustments allow you to tune the right size recommendations to your preference, your comfort level. And then once you do that, those recommendations will update in Cost Optimization Hub. They'll now update in Trusted Advisor. So you'll get that same result, that same recommendation with all of your settings and customizations embedded into the recommendation result. And so there's no, hey, how come the recommendations are different? Right, they'll be consistent across all products.
I love just the fact that that's grown again. Like we talk about the development of TA and like over time that you can now have these configurations. And I don't think people take enough time to go and look at it, especially as simple as in those non-production accounts, enabling that and setting it up by default, especially for people out there, go look in and have a look at those and think, okay, where is non-production? Do we need to have that massive amount of headroom and stuff?
It's interesting, Seth. We talked about like the earning trust with developers.
Yeah.
And we design the recommendations to be really safe by default because we don't necessarily know the sensitivity of the application you're running. It may be like a revenue generating, really important product for your company. And by default, we want these recommendations to be sort of bulletproof, very safe out of the box, where if you take a recommendation, nothing's going to break. You're not going to have performance degradation. You're not going to have performance issues or loading wheels or customers upset. And that means that there's a little bit more money to be saved over the default configuration. But this levels the playing field where anytime a developer looks at like a default recommendation, it's going to be safe, it's going to be trustworthy, and it's going to save some amount of money, most likely, right? If there is any extra utilization that is not benefiting your company. And then you can go configure and get more savings there for non-prod or whatnot. But we have to start with this idea that we have to earn trust first with our recommendations. And we have to shorten the cycle time it takes to validate if a recommendation is safe. So that's the mentality behind how we build recommendations. And then from there, provide customization to increase the aggressiveness and then therefore savings.
Right. We've got a couple of questions that we'll bring up now, which is any plans for DynamoDB optimization? So unused tables or indexes with revisioned WCU or RCUs, for example.
So we do offer Dynamo reserve node capacity recommendations today. And that's essentially when you have reserve capacity that you'd like to, or have an opportunity to purchase a reservation for that to lower the total cost. Those recommendations exist today in the Hub, in Cost Explorer, and now in TA. And for future recommendations on optimization of DynamoDB, that's the sort of stuff we love to hear. So, Steph often makes sure and facilitates that feedback gets back to my team so we can keep it in our backlog and prioritize it.
We're serious. Drop us an email, customization@amazon.com, because the one thing we need is, I love on here that all of you are like, we want this thing. That's great, but I don't know who you are. So I don't know what company you work for, and we need to have that kind of data to push this through. I can't just say, because everyone would think it's my mum or something, like, sure, some people always say. So we want to make sure that we actually get people there, and the reasons why this would be helpful for you and things like that is so important. Just another kind of point, which is, wow, so Trusted Advisor shows an active VPC inference interface point, was probably pointing out a routing issue. Yeah, a lot of the cost checks that we see are just because something's wrong. So some of the best examples are, and I wonder if you guys have any as well, is anomaly detection, catching. We had someone from Twilio last year at FinOpsX telling a story about how it caught fraud because someone was utilizing the DynamoDB table and it spiked, and it was catching fraud, and that was what the alert was. We often see it with things like incomplete multi-part uploads is a good example, where something has happened with the processing of data and it's trying to get into S3, but something's timing out, or there's some kind of throughput issue, or it fails if it's a Lambda function after 15 minutes. Things like that happen, and the cost implication shows there's a problem because there was no alarm set up or no one really tracking it. So utilizing the tools can also catch those things. I don't know, Logan, if you have any examples or recipes.
In my interviews with Trusted Advisor customers, I haven't heard of this, but it makes a lot of sense. Like there are overlaps with cost and security, for example. Exactly what you said. Those tend to be two things that go together. As unusual costs then tend to say someone might be, commandeering resources inside your AWS account. So yeah, I have seen that relationship when I've talked with other technical account managers who talk with other customers. Yeah.
I definitely see it. There's two places that are most common that cross my desk. I think the first is, please make sure to set up anomaly detection. If you have, a security breach and somebody's using your account to mine Bitcoin or whatever, anomaly detection will catch it pretty quick and give you an alert that, hey, your costs have all of a sudden 100x'd in the last 24 hours. You should probably go take a look at that. The other one is EBS unattached. I've seen this where, somebody will set up a new CI/CD pipeline that will rebuild an EC2 instance every 4 hours. Say it's an automated build solution. And if you do not configure the cleanup part of that pipeline to delete your EBS volume, then it won't. And you'll have a ton of unattached EBS volumes. And I've seen some customers that are surprised when they look at the recommendation and they're like, how come I have 6,000 unattached EBS volumes in my account? And it's like, well, let's take a look. And then you find out that when you delete an EC2 instance, it does not necessarily delete the EBS volume. That's a separate object. It's considered and treated like its complete own separate resource and entity in AWS. You might want to save that data. You might want to attach it to a different EC2 instance. There's a lot of ways you can utilize EBS for great benefit by reusing that volume. And that's one of the reasons why it just doesn't automatically delete when you delete an EC2 instance, for example. And sometimes that's a surprise. Sometimes there's a little bit of an education gap, but having a product like Compute Optimizer that will go and scan and say, yes, you've got all of these unattached EBS volumes. They're costing you this amount of money. We typically see that optimization, sometimes it's a one-time cleanup. Sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Let me reconfigure my CI/CD pipeline so this doesn't exist into the future. And so you do a one-time cleanup, you get rid of all of the unattached EBS volumes, you reconfigure your rules so it doesn't happen in the future. Now, just because you cleaned it up doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. Some new employee comes on, they set up a new pipeline, or they try something out. So it's important to stay on top of it and constantly look at the recommendations. And healthy optimization is consistent, it's long-term, it's a routine, it's a pattern, it's a behavior, not a one-time cleanup. So I definitely coach customers through like, yes, do the one-time cleanup, but build the muscle to routinely look at this and monitor it over time.
Yeah, definitely. And we have another question, kind of like we were saying earlier, but any plans to integrate budget, summary detection, TA, and COH into one UI page? The thing I would say is there would be a lot on one page, but if you want it, then going back to that BFR conversation, let us know why. What challenge do you have at the moment by having them on different pages that you want to summarize? But Rick, I don't know if you know if there's anything coming out that way.
Well, we have the cost management console. The cost management console has like a small version of Cost Explorer, a little widget of costs. It has the top recommended actions widget. And so it is attempting to be a summary view, which kind of pulls together high level, hey, how much am I spending? What are the top things I can do to lower my bill? Do I have any anomaly alerts or budget breaches or things like that? So the cost management console is designed to have kind of that high level overview into your costs and spend.
Yeah, perfect. And someone's already said, I see PFRs going to staff. Yes, I'm here to get them. Please send them over to me. Last couple of questions. We've got 10 minutes left. I want to touch on FinOpsX, but before we do, a question which is which role should use which tool? So let's quickly just cover that. Logan, from your point of view, who are the people that are using Trusted Advisor?
In terms of cost optimization, I do see a wide variety of organizations using it and then roles within it. And I'll break it down into those two. So in terms of roles, I typically see FinOps and cost management professionals inside of medium and large size organizations, because Trusted Advisor with the check says you'll need to have at least business support. So we start scaling into larger organizations, and so the conversations I have with customers, it tends to be people who are focused on helping their ops teams, DevOps teams understand the cost implications of spinning up, EC2, Lambdas, etc. So they tend to be very specialized, and it's probably very similar for Rick's customers as well.
Yeah, I would say for Cost Optimization Hub, it's definitely just like a cost focus. It really is. Do you have a team? Maybe it's the FinOps team, maybe it's within the FinOps team if you have a large FinOps team that's focused on evaluating recommendations, making sure they get handed out to the specific business units that own the resources related to a recommendation, right? So you're really working with that recommendation data. So that might be like a FinOps analyst. Sometimes that might be like a solution architect that's kind of more interfacing with the development teams. And then I would also say for Compute Optimizer, we really think more of the developer persona. This is the person that owns the individual EC2 instance and is going to take an action or change a configuration. And that might mean it has to be compatible with their change control process. Maybe they use templates or automation to make changes to their configuration. And so that developer or DevOps persona will be somebody that would have the permission and authority to act and execute a recommendation on a resource. I think of, and like from TA's perspective, it's bigger. It's you have the security stuff, you've got a lot more policy management. So I see like a lot more of this, hey, we've got rigorous standards for how we manage cloud resources over time. And it's a holistic approach to what are our policies? How do we enforce our policies? Whereas Cost Optimization Hub is purely about the money. It's like, show me the money, right?
Yeah. I would say that, in Trusted Advisor, we see less on the developer persona, particularly on Cost Optimization Hub, and more, frankly, in terms of our customers, they tend to be third-party aggregators that consume data via the API and less via the console. And so that's a very different experience. Once you consume data via the API, then you, as a customer, are typically reformatting it, filtering it to whatever your particular needs are. And so they'll ingest all of the security and cost optimization. And so, for example, some really large customer of ours, they are focused on just filtering for the cost optimization data, whereas some others use a combination of security and cost optimization. And I mention those two purposely because those tend to be two of the top uses for trusted advisor, security and cost optimization. And what the term that sometimes gets used, or what Rick's talking about, is cloud center of excellence types of organizations where they have a broader, almost like governance role, and they use trusted advisor as one of several kind of data touch points to understand what's going on in their, AWS cloud environment.
Yeah, and I definitely agree about the who's looking at it in terms of also permissions. So someone's commented that they used to be in a FinOps role, but now they're not, and so they've lost access to some of the billing tools, which does happen if people have very fine grain access. And so sending people to now Trusted Advisor is also great, and especially if you're looking at multiple sets. We also had a question in the chat about anomaly detection, diving in a little bit more, and I've posted a link to a video. We dive into that. On to our very last topic, which is next week is FinOps X. We will be doing Twitch. It won't be me hosting. It will be John. But I wanted to chat a little bit about FinOps X itself. We've got nice people saying, I'm really excited to see you guys there. Agree. And Cosplayer was asking if we're going to be there. Everyone can go say hi to Cosplayers too. But we have a very handy, let me share my screen. We have a handy blog that I'll put in the chat, which covers all the different sessions that we have going on and some know before you go stuff. Rick, you're doing a session, is that right?
That's right. What's new in AWS optimization? And you should definitely come if you like exciting new ways to save money.
I love it. Simple marketing. Just come. I feel like and if you don't know just as a really important point, go on the URL of this blog to see the different sessions, because not all of them are in the FinOps X agenda. So there's some of them are here, but they're all going to be in the AWS room, which is the right-hand corner of the expo space. It's going to be the content space. So there'll be sessions running all through the conference. We'll make sure you can go check out the AWS booth, meet loads of people who have been on this show, and you'll be able to see that. I am doing 2 sessions. I am doing on day 1, adapting adapting a FinOps playbook for GenAI with Adam. Super excited to dive into some really technical stuff with GenAI optimization and also how you see your costs, but nothing too crazy in terms of new stuff. It's how we can re-look at what we're doing in a different lens. And then the second day, we're doing how to do analyzing your CUR. I know all of you watching are probably like, I know how to do my CUR. Well, we have a couple of fun new queries. We're also going to do an AI query to make sure that we learn a little bit more and share some examples. There's also time for people to kind of chat and ask us questions about it. But anything else you're excited about seeing at the conference, Rick?
Oh, just the people. I mean, the FinOps community is a pretty tight-knit group of folks that it feels really good to be part of a community where we're all trying to help each other maximize ROI on cloud spend. And what I mean by that is, like, everybody's laser focused on making sure the spend they have in cloud environments matches business value. And there's a lot of ways to do that. There's a lot of tools, there's a lot of processes, a lot of practitioners are coming to present how they do things like forecasting or budgets or alerts or some of these FinOps use cases. And so just like, I love to go and just soak it in and listen and learn from what some of the experts in the industry are doing. And then I also love to go and announce all the cool stuff we've been working on for months and months or years, and hopefully make FinOps practitioners' lives easier, right? Hey, here's new capability. Here's ways that we've thought up that we can make your lives easier, or hopefully take manual processes and make them go away so you can focus more of your time on high value work.
And it's going to be a great conference day. It always is. It's really fun. If you see us, come say hi. Love chatting with people, hearing your stories, love hearing challenges. Also, if anyone has a suggestion for an episode that they want to see us cover, or if they have a great story and they want to come on and share that, you can always do that at the conference. A bunch of people in the chat are coming, so super excited to do that. We actually had a question, which is, what swag are you eyeing up at FinOps X? Everyone knows I love me some swag. I have 2. I used to have 3 of the hats, and I lost one on a flight. So I have these 2 hats. Do you know what's annoying? Is they've redone these hats, but they didn't redo the green hat that was just with the X. And I'm just annoyed at myself for not getting that hat the first year. So if anyone says that hat doesn't want it, I want it for my.
Steph, I have one of those green ones. I can ring that for you.
I mean, if you don't want it, then I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously. Do I wear them? No, they're decorative, but I like to keep them because Someone gave me the other. You can get a white version of the blue and purple one. I lost it somewhere. Anyways, we have just enough time to do our Secret Richard summary. So if you don't know, Richard is watching. He's not AI, and he listens to all of our chat and comes up with a summary. Every episode has a summary at the end. So if you want to see what we covered, you can always check out that at the end. So we'll bring that up. So Cost Optimization Hub and Trusted Advisor are together at last with 15 new checks. Check out those adjustable configurations for COH and make sure to ask for a selfie. Or bring me M&Ms. That's the other thing people love to do at those conferences is bring me M&Ms. And I will say thank you and I'll give you a hug and say and appreciate it. As always, thank you. Thank you so much for watching today. Any questions, please put emails costoptimization@amazon.com. As I said, next week we will still be streaming, but it will be John who is doing it and Daniel from our team talking all about some FinOps role elements to it. So make sure you subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with all that content. But that is it from us. Thank you so much for joining and we'll see you next time. Bye.